Good morning to all my chemistry students out there. I hope this finds you doing well and you're having a wonderful day. Today we're going to start our first podcast in chapter 4, and we are going to learn how to write all these crazy symbols, and eventually we'll be masters at writing formulas and then putting them into balanced equations and then moving on from there. So the first thing that we need to talk about is that your book does a different way of approaching it where they break it down into 3 different categories, and we're going to do the same thing, so these podcasts will be relatively short. So the first section is naming binary compounds. All right, so what's a binary compound? A compound containing only 2 elements. So these are the simple ones. These are the easy ones that you should be able to name. Now, from our last chapter, we talked about compounds, we talked about metals and nonmetals, where they are on the periodic chart. If you remember, metals are found where? They are found on the left side of the periodic chart, and then we have the nonmetals that are found on the right side. And remember that they are divided by the step ladder that's on the right-hand side of the periodic chart. So our goal here, as we've talked about, is they want to become stable like the noble gases, and how do they do that? So one way they can do it is by an ionic compound. And what this is this involves the transfer of electrons. So we talked about in the last chapter that the electrons will gain and lose in order to become stable and look like the noble gases, and that's how they became an ion and got their charges. So this involves the transfer of electrons, and it's going to involve a metal to a non-metal. Now we're going to learn a whole lot more about this, but in just the simplest terms, the metals are going to give electrons, they're going to transfer them to the nonmetals that are going to take in electrons to reach their stability. So you guys have a cation anion sheet, and you guys are able to take a look at the charges. It's not anything, again, that you have to memorize. And so the type 1 compounds are metals that form only one cation, meaning they just have one charge. There's no exceptions. Sodium is always only going to be +1, and calcium is only going to be +2. So when I take a look at sodium with a +1 charge, it means that it had a loss of 1 electron. Calcium with a +2 charge means that it had a loss of 2 electrons, and they are doing that in order to become stable. So what does this mean in terms of writing compounds? So here's our examples. We have sodium iodide. So look up in your cation anion sheet, you can see that sodium is +1, iodine is -1. Our goal here is to make an atom that is neutral, just like they are on the periodic chart. So you can see that +1 and -1, they equal 0. So I simply can just write down my formula, NaI. If I go to the second one for calcium iodide, I can see that calcium has a +2 charge, iodine has a -1 charge. Now, I want to make this neutral. Well, in order to make this neutral, you should be saying to yourself, well, if I have 2 positives and 1 negative, it makes sense that I need 2 of these. So I would write down my formula, CaI2, because that's going to balance it out. Another simple little way of doing that is just drop the 2 down here, drop the 1 down here. We don't write the 1s, and we get the same result, CaI2. Now if you take a look and you multiply this, +2 times -1 is +2. 2 times -1 is -2, which equals 0. So we have written the formula correctly. Okay, so if I take a look at writing it the other way, this is just really simple. It is just simply the first name and the last name. So the first one is a capital letter, magnesium, and instead of bromine or sulfur, sorry, we have magnesium and sulfur, it becomes an IDE ending. So it's going to be sulfide. So the first element is just the way it is on the periodic chart. K is potassium. And then Br is bromine, but becomes an IDE ending, showing that it has been bonded. So it is sodium or potassium bromide. Okay, so these practice problems that you have right here, they are just writing the name, and you guys also have a worksheet on homework 1 that you'll be doing to complete this section. That is it. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you in class.